Would you look at that? A win against a playoff team, a win against one of the best teams in the Western Conference, the Pittsburgh Penguins, take care of business on Thursday night in a dominant fashion. 4-1 win over the Minnesota Wild there. Right now, in the first wildcard spot, stop the count. Stop the count, because by the end of this, they're still probably going to be out of the playoff spot. The Panthers are up big. Islanders are up big. They are not getting any help right now. But for today's episode, where you're going to recap that game against the Wild, what the Penguins did right, and how they're going to have to win these final 3 games if they want to get in. Because you look at the other 2 teams' schedules, I don't know if they're going to lose. Those other 2 teams are going to lose any of those other games. So that's all coming up right after this drop.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at Eleanor Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. We're free and available on all platforms. Penguins 4, Wild 1, and a very dominant win for this team. The Penguins came out firing in that first period. You knew from that opening shift that they were really pissed off about how that last game on Tuesday went in Newark against the Devils. They played with a sense of urgency, a sense of desperation, that they knew their season was on the line tonight. Had the Penguins lost this game with how the other results are going right now, they would be 3 points back with only 3 games left to play. At that point, anything could happen, but it would be almost impossible to come back from the Penguins, right now. So very much alive in the wild card race, have 3 games left. In a playoff spot right now. It's not going to be the case by the end of the night unless the Tampa Bay Lightning have a miraculous 3-goal comeback in them against the Islanders in the third period, but they've been being brutally outplayed. I was dual casting that game next to the Penguins game. They've been playing like crap. But in terms of the Penguins, thought they did a lot of stuff right tonight. Again, outside of that sense of, urgency and desperation, they got to the dirty areas on Marc-Andre Fleury. I thought they defended really well in the defensive zone. I thought they were able to finish their chances, which is something that they've really struggled with this season. And it all got started in the first period where, Fleury kind of let up a little bit of a howler. That's usually a goal he wouldn't allow, but it was also a really nice snipe by Kris Letang. Had a beautiful celebration after he was fired up for this one. After that, Rickard Rakell with another beautiful rip. He had a couple big time rips in this game. He had another one, that I think Fleury glove that should have went in the back of the net. This one was a total Alex Ovechkin like slap shot. At least that's how I saw it. He got all of that thing. No chance for Flower on that one. He's closing in on 30 goals this season. What a pickup he has been. And Adam Gretz of Pro Hockey Talk, he used to be for Pro Hockey Talk, but he's now for Pittsburgh and a couple other websites. He said it best on Twitter for Ron Hextall. How do you get this trade and not re-signing so right, but you get everything else wrong? It's just like I feel like a different general manager traded for Rickard Rakell based on how good he's been and based on how bad a lot of these other acquisitions have been for the Penguins this season. But where would they be without him? He's been great. Jason Zucker, he gets on the board. He's also closing in on 30. Where would they be without him this season? He got all of that slapper. Also another great celebration. I'm kind of surprised that Dean Evason didn't really challenge that. Because it looked like there was a little bit of contact, but I think the Penguins, they're getting out of Fleury's way. They didn't really test it, though. I think at that point, maybe they thought the game was out of reach. I don't know. I think in a playoff game, or if they were more in the race that the Penguins were, because they've already clinched their playoff spot. They're just battling for a division title right now. I think if the game was a little bit closer, or if they were a little more desperate, I think they would have challenged that. That's just how I see it. But Penguins got a little bit of a break there. I don't really know if it would have came back. I think it probably would have stayed a good goal, at least how I saw it. And then Jeff Carter gets a goal to make it 4-1. Wild got a goal to 5-on-3. Jeff Carter makes it 4-1. I don't know if y'all noticed, Brian Dumoulin where did that zone entry come from? Dude's out here looking like Paul Coffey reincarnated there. I was just stunned. And his offensive game is, say what you will about his defensive game this season has been pretty bad. And honestly, I think most of his game has been bad this season, but his offensive game, starting to come around a little bit these last couple of weeks. I really liked how he played this game. Outside of that goal going off his skate, that's just a little bit of bad luck, I think. But really nice to see him, make that nice zone entry, get the puck to Drew O'Connor, who gets it to Jeff Carter to get the goal. He should have had another goal to make it 2-0, I believe in the second period. Just completely whiffed on a chance at the side of the net. It was a really nice saucer pass from Brian Rust, kind of went through his skates, wasn't able to corral it, but was able to get some payback there and make it 4-1 and put the game out of reach, because as you all know, the Penguins play horrendous in third periods, but not today. They scored 2 third period goals. They didn't really play that well in the third period, but they didn't really play that poorly. So I will take that as a sign of a little bit of progress. Numbers wise, also the Penguins, they got they did the third period. They got out attempted shot wise 22-5. High danger though, they only gave up 3 high danger chances to the Wild at 5-on-5. You will take that any day you can. Expected goals, because the Penguins were so good in that first period, ended up being about a 50-50 game there. 1.52 expected goals for at even strength for the Penguins, 1.53 for the Wild. So they may have been out attempted. Scoring chances wise, it was close to 50-50. Expected goals, about 50-50. So, again, I think I just totally screwed that up. Okay. Anyways, we're going to rephrase that. Anyways, they may have been out attempted pretty badly in this game, but when you look at, the scoring chances, the Penguins actually had the edge there. High danger was close to 50-50. And with expected goals 50-50, you will take that any day of the week. I thought the Penguins came out strong in the first period. Second period, they didn't play as well. Third period, they were on their heels a little bit, but they were able to finish on the 2 main chances that they got in the third period. And, when you're getting good goaltending and your special teams are mostly being pretty decent in this game, that's usually enough to win this one. This was a very solid win. I said coming into this week, minimum, you have to get 2 out of 4 points in these 2 games against the Devils and the Wild. Obviously, would have been nice to get those 2 points against the Devils on Tuesday, because they would be in a playoff spot right now. Oh, they would be ahead of the Islanders right now. But, you get the minimum of what I think most people wanted, the split. Now you go into these final 3 games, obviously needing to win them, but you're playing 3 teams that you should be able to beat. If you want to be a playoff team, you need to win those 3 games. Overall, though, my main takeaway from this game, as I've basically been talking about this whole segment, just a really sound performance from the Penguins. They showed a lot of urgency. They showed a lot of desperation. They knew their season was on the line. They knew they couldn't lose this one. And I think they're going to hopefully carry that over in a Saturday afternoon's game against the Red Wings, and then on a Tuesday and Thursday next week against the Chicago Blackhawks and the Columbus Blue Jackets, 2 of the other worst teams in the league. So progress tonight after they got blown to hell in Newark on Tuesday. Let's see if they can continue it on Saturday. Coming up in the second segment, we're going to touch on Tristan Jarry's performance and how I thought he had a big bounce back in this one, and how the Penguins are going to have to really rely on him in these final 3 games. But before we get to that, it's time, obviously, to talk about the official sports betting partner of Locked On, which is FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and the NHL playoffs are almost here, and now's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet does not win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drain. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss a chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA and Locked On. I'm back here in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter, Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at @NorthStar Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. Right now, as I'm recording this, 6:59 left in the third period, 4-1 lead for the Islanders. The Penguins will be out of a playoff spot at the end of this one. Looking at money puck stuff, I'm trying to find just mostly just everything from Tristan Jarry. Tonight, full game, expected goals against was 1.998, actual goals against 1, so he saved 1 goal above expected. That's what you want from him. You will take that any day of the week. He played very, very strong tonight, and it was a much better performance than how he played in Newark on Tuesday, where I thought he gave up a couple of hours. I didn't really like that first Dougie Hamilton goal that he allowed. I thought that one he could have stopped. And then there were a couple others. The one when he tried to shove the puck into his glove with his stick, that comes out. I think that was it was either the Timo Meier or the Dawson Mercer goal. Excuse me. I didn't really like that one either, but it was nice to see the goaltender bounce back in the Penguins. They're going to need that here in these final 3 games. For better or worse, Tristan Jarry is the number 1 starting goaltender right now, and they are going to ride him in these final 3 games. I don't care what anyone else says about Casey DeSmith and how he could be the better option in quotation marks. Hint, he's not. He's just, at best, it's even, I guess. But I think when it all comes down to it, if I want one of these 2 goalies to go out there and win a game to clinch me into a playoff spot, I am going with the number 1 guy who played very well in this game against Minnesota and who had a very good first half before the injuries and who had a very good regular season, last year. Is he a bit banged up right now? Yes, he's battled the groin injury. He's battling the back injury. I'm still going to stick to my theory that he gets the shot in his back because his movement lately has been a bit better. But, they have no choice here. He is the guy. He's healthy. He's ready to go. There's 3 games left. For better or worse, they are going to have to ride him. And I thought his movement tonight was mostly pretty good. He looked a little gimpy, I think, in one chance late in the 3rd period, where he was kind of just flubbing around in his net. I'm hoping he didn't re-aggravate, the groin or something in his back didn't give out or something, but he was able to finish the game, made some strong saves. The goal that he gave up was not his fault. People might nitpick it and say, oh, well, you wish he could get his pad over, whatever. It went off Brian Dumoulin skating, and if he's not right there, I think he's probably able to go out there and clear it. Well, not clear it, cover it, excuse me. But, I will take that performance from the Penguins' number 1 netminder any day of the week. That was a big one for him, and I will very much assume that he will start on Saturday afternoon in Detroit in another massive game. That game basically means nothing to the Red Wings. They're out of it. A lot of these teams behind the Penguins right now, they're out of it. This is right now a full 3-team race. As of right now, I'm just making sure I have the standings right. So the Panthers, obviously, the Senators are shooting the Panthers 54-27. Alex Lyon has 53 saves. Who in the heck is that guy? 53 saves and the Panthers are up 7-1. What are we doing here? Red Wings, Sabres are going to a shootout. Islanders are now up 5-1, so that's going to be another win there as well. But, again, Ottawa loses this game. They're 7 points out. Well, 6 points out right now. Well, they're actually going to be 8 points out. They're cooked. Detroit, even if they win, they're cooked. Washington, done. Buffalo, they're kind of there, but as long as these teams keep winning, they're also kind of not there because after this game against the Red Wings, whoever, if they win, they have the Hurricanes, Rangers, and Devils all in a row. So they're basically out of it. Again, this is a 3-team race for 2 spots. But I got off track a little bit. I apologize. But again, I liked how Tristan played. He made a couple of sprawling saves as well. He got a little into it with Marcus Foligno at the end of the game. I think he looked like he was trying to poke him in the mask a little bit, which was a little weird. I don't really know what that was about, but I don't know what the heck. Every time I am just halfway through a show, this cough just comes back. I apologize about that. But I think it's the allergies. The pollen is really starting to get to me. But, he stood tall. This wasn't one of his bad games. That's what you want to see from him. And again, I think you are going to see him start in those last 3 games. Another big player that returned tonight, Jan Rutta. The Penguins are getting a little bit healthier here going into these final few games. The only other big regular that's out is Marcus Pettersson. Yes, they do have Nick Menino out and Dmitry Kulikov is still hurt, but the biggest player that is still hurt right now is Marcus Pettersson. Hopefully they'll be able to get him back for Saturday's game or maybe for the couple of games next week. He's been skating and all that. But I liked Jan Rutta's performance tonight. He had one definitely great play that really stood out to me I believe it was in the third period. Wild had a power play, and they should have a sure goal in the front of the net. Ruda's able to put his stick down. Puck goes right to it. He's able to clear it. Really nice, just a really nice self-aware play from him, because, other times he probably wouldn't have made that play because he struggled a bit this season. But, he made a nice play there. He was strong in the penalty kill tonight, where, we all know that unit has really struggled this season. So it was nice to see him come back. It's just about his first game in about 3.5 weeks. I don't really think he's been that good this season overall. I think he was still kind of an unnecessary signing for the Penguins, but, he played well in this game. I will give credit where it's due. I'm trying to make sure here. Got everything I wanted to discuss. I mean, the big guns, outside of Sidney Crosby, the big guns carried the weight tonight. It's the same guys that have been scoring all year, though. The Penguins obviously did get a depth goal from Jeff Carter. That is awesome. But the one player who has not been playing that well as of late, Sidney Crosby. Hasn't scored in his last few games. Not a point per game player these last 7 to 10 games. Definitely feeling it a little bit. I don't think he's hurt or anything. It's just, sometimes great players go into slumps. And it's unfortunate that it's, the worst time of year to go into one, especially because the Penguins are fighting for their lives right now just to get into the dance. So, I thought Gino, a little bit quiet, but I thought he had a little bit of a better game than Sin. But, Jake Guentzel played well. Rickard Rakell gets one. Jason Zucker gets one. Kris Letang, he has a fantastic game. He's been awesome for them all year. Drew O'Connor with a really nice pass to Jeff Carter. All around a solid team win for the Penguins, even though, the two of the big guns in Crosby and Malkin, they didn't really get on the score sheet that much tonight. But this is what you want to see. You take wins any way you can get them this time of year. Any way you can get them. So that wraps up the second segment with regards to Tristan Jarry, Jan Ruda, a couple other things. To end the show, I'm going to get into why, honestly, people should not be rooting for the Penguins to miss the playoffs. I'm going to tell you why you should not be doing that. Because to me, I don't really think it makes too much sense. But before we get into that, we do have to discuss Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could handpick the best stars for your business team? If you're building your talent roster, you need Indeed. It is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Do not spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills. We can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessments, and virtual interviews. Hate waiting? Well, Indeed's U.S. data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. Candidates you invite to apply through Instant Match are also 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in search, according to U.S. Indeed data. So right now, Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you also have to make every dollar count, right? And that's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring right now. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon. Remember, Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. All right, I'm back here in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow this show's Twitter at @Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. So I have been seeing a lot of these takes, whether it's, people commenting on the show on YouTube, audio, sending me DMs, honestly, just everywhere regarding the Penguins that, the Penguins should just miss the playoffs. It's just going to lead to quicker changes, and all that stuff. Honestly, I'm not even sure that's the case. I think, this is the way I see it. There's not much of a difference between drafting 15th, for example, and drafting 19th if the Penguins get in. Either way, the Penguins should just dump that first round pick to go get immediate help for next season, because they are going to be in it to win it next season. You have Crosby, you have Malkin, you have Letang. You just made that, that commitment to the core that you are still trying to win. Even if they miss the playoffs this year, they probably shouldn't even have that pick next year, to be honest. So just by, with that 15th pick, you're not just going to be randomly starting the rebuild with that pick. No, you're not. The chance of you getting an impact player there is slim to none. That player is not going to be available for 4 to 5 years. This isn't the NFL here, people. This is not the NBA. Heck, sometimes even in baseball, this is not baseball where sometimes the number one pick is ready right away. But even sometimes some of those players are also not ready yet to come to the major leagues. This is a lot different. And regardless of, playoff revenue and all that stuff, because, obviously the Penguins will obviously want the revenue for at least 2 home games. But also, do people just magically think that ownership is just going to be like, oh yeah, now that they missed the playoffs, we have to do something? I think they have to be well enough aware of the problems going on with this team right now. If they get in and they get swept or they lose in 5 games, I think you will see the same exact change that you would see if they would miss the playoffs. But wouldn't you still rather want to see your team go in there and at least compete for a chance at a massive upset? I mean, the fan in me would, obviously. I cover the team, so, I don't want to sound like I'm being like a weirdo here. But, the person in me from, 5-6 years ago, absolutely. And also, more playoff content for this show, with how great it's been for the last several years when this team has gone to the playoffs, even though the Penguins haven't really gone for it. That's just me being selfish, of course. But still, think about it. You get to see your team go in the dance, even though they'll be underdogs against whoever they play, Boston, Carolina, maybe New Jersey, something like that. It's still better to be in the dance than be out of the dance. Will a serious change come if they miss the playoffs? Absolutely. But either way, if this ownership group can't see that this team needs changes, regardless if they make it in or not, especially if they do get in and get swept or lose in 5 games, then that's an even bigger problem for me. If I'm a fan of a team, I always want to see them make the playoffs. It's the same thing. I was seeing arguments about the Steelers earlier this year. They had like a slim chance to get in the playoffs, and they actually almost did in week 17 or week 18, excuse me. And people are like, no, like just keep losing for the better draft pick. It's like, no, like these players, they're not going to do that. But, for the Steelers, they're in a different situation because they had a little bit of a rebuilding year this year. But still, I think everyone would have wanted to see those young players play in the playoffs. It gets them playoff experience. For these guys, you only have so many more chances at a Stanley Cup in this era. You don't want to keep wasting that. So I would much rather see this team play in the playoffs and have at least a small chance of an upset rather than the miss. Outside of, just arena reasons for them getting more revenue there and all that, people are going to say, oh, you get a better draft pick. Yeah, they should just trade that. Oh, they'll make more changes. They should make changes anyway, even if they get blown out in the first round. So, that's how I see it, at least. Maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you agree with me. I would love to know your thoughts on that down in the comments for YouTube, or you can just send me a DM and all that on social media and all that good stuff. But wanted to spend a few minutes in this final segment touching on that and why I think it's just kind of, weird that people are just openly rooting for them to miss. And I understand that this season has been exhausting. I am very tired of covering this team. Don't get me wrong, people. We're 79 games in. This team has been so maddening. They shouldn't even be in this situation right now, considering all the points they've left out on the table, but they are. Still, I would rather see them be in the playoffs than see them left in the dust, see that streak break, see them, super upset going into the offseason and all that. That's just how I feel. And I think a good chunk of you probably will feel that way as well. But that'll do it for this episode. I really appreciate all of you listening to this one, / watching, of course. Let me know what you all think down in the comments. Let me know how you think they played. Do you think they're going to win their final 3 games? Do you think that they will sneak in to the playoffs? Will one of the Islanders or the Panthers slip up in their final 3 games? Let me know about that in the comments. I'll be back with another episode for you all on Friday. Touch on some practice notes, preview that big game against the Red Wings. Could Marcus Pettersson be back? All that good jazz. So again, thank you all so much for listening and watching. I'll speak with you all again on Friday. Have a good one, everybody.